All right, so I guess we're ready to get started. Anyways, this will be recorded for anyone wishing to tune in later on and be able to listen to what I'm going to explain today. So today there will be two parts. The first, well, last week I posted two memos for the community. I know we've been discussing for a while about the lack of communication and engagement between the team and the community. We're definitely discussing internally to solve that and also show you the path forward for THENA. I know whether it is for the market or for THENA, it hasn't been an easy year for traders and for token holders. And so today I just want to reiterate our engagement to keep building THENA, to keep generating value for our token holders and for the people that joined us since we launched THENA in January 2023. So thanks everyone for tuning in. And let me start with giving you a bit more context about what happened over the last months. So the highs, the setbacks, the lessons. I covered those roughly in the memo. Obviously, there are a lot of other details that I could cover during this call. And also want to bring you to why those experiences led us to where we stand today. And it led us to the strategic direction that are outlined in the second part of the memo. So let me rewind a little bit and start from the beginning. For a bit of context, we started being in discussion with Binance Lab, now called YZ Labs, maybe a couple of months after launch. And it actually took us a bit over a year to close a deal with them for multiple reasons. The first was that we were not the first DEX on the chain. Our competitor is actually one of the largest DEX across all chains. And the second is that we were post-TGE. We did a stealth launch, no VCs, community focused, raised only with community members and DAOs as well. And at the time for YZ Labs, it was a very rare event to invest post-TGEs. So after about a year and a half of hard work, releasing our V2, integrating directly AMMs, releasing Arena, showing strengths during the bear markets, we finally ended up with an agreement from YZ Lab, and shortly after, we managed to accelerate the conversation with Binance. And if for those of you who were there at the time, we already had, I would say, a couple of rough times, and we were in the middle of one. And the Binance listing came in end of November, early December of last year. And for us, even if it was only a step towards what we wanted to achieve, it was time for us to capture that momentum. The thing is that right after the listing, I personally moved to Singapore for 3.5 months because we had extended the team in various parts of Asia, and through various conferences, we connected with a lot of institutions, and a lot of them were based in Singapore. So we wanted to leverage the Binance listing and the momentum that we had. I wanted to go on the spot and start developing the business over there. The goal was pretty simple. It was to onboard TVL from institutions so that we could go the step above. I was quite displeased with the timing that we listed because I would have, as I said in the memo, I would have rather have released V3 before because it gives us way more flexibility in how we can onboard the LPs, notably to farm THC while being able to handle manually your liquidity position. But unfortunately, we had as a team no control over that. And what happened is that we had the network, we had the momentum, but the harsh reality is that we didn't manage to convert it. On top of that, we kind of marked the top of the momentum the market had at this moment, but it didn't reach the scale that we needed and not at the speed that we expected. And at the same time, actually around the time I came back from Singapore, we were pretty far in the deal with Venus that most of you were eagerly expecting. And unfortunately, it fell apart at the last minute after Snapshot was approved already. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go into too many details because those are internal discussions and I am not even allowed to discuss about everything. But a change of management happens. The discussion took 10 steps back. And with all the work that we had provided, it was very hard for us to start all over again. We didn't reach consensus like before. And so we kind of stopped the discussion at this stage. To be completely honest with you, from my almost 5 years of building in DeFi, this was probably one of my personal lowest points. Someone asked in the community questions, what was the impact? The impact on THENA directly, when we'll be looking back, will probably be marginal. But on the spirit of the team at that time, after losing all the momentum that we worked so hard to achieve, was a huge setback for us. After everything that we built, the 2 years nonstop grinding during bear markets, we truly believed it was our time to shine. And obviously, it didn't manifest. So it was not only disappointing, it was disorienting. For me, at least, as a founder, like there is nothing that is harder to watch like the entire narrative that you built, the roadmap, the vision that you've tried to execute on for the past years, and that it all breaks apart in real time. And during those times, what you need to tell yourself is the same as usual. You need to keep pushing. You need to stay focused. You kind of like normalize it. It's the life of a startup. It's the ups and downs. But I can guarantee you that as the founder, as a team in DeFi that wants to build for the long term, DeFi is really, really hard. Anyways, I'm not here to give us excuses because I gave you some context, but that was mixed with also poor timing, poor execution, not scaling at the right time, and missing opportunities as well. So a lot of the results of these bad periods is also on us. What I'm trying to give is a bit of context as to a lot of things happened post Binance listing that basically slowed the growth strategy that we had in mind. So now, having said that, it was painful. It was costly as well, but it gave us a lot of clarity on the path forward. And so now that's what I want to focus on, because at the end of the day, our duty is to make sure that THENA will be there for the years to come and will deliver value to our token holders. I know as a founder, it's generally a bad thing to talk about token valuation, token price, but in my opinion, and especially in the case of a DEX like THENA, it's also a little bit of bullshit, because at the end of the day, the valuation of our token is what allows us to scale our liquidity, because we use our token as incentives and we use the yield generated by this TVL to incentivize people to lock. So it is an important component of our model. So the thing is that now, as a team, we understand the ecosystem we operate in, and we understand everything around building an AMM way better than before, whether in terms of how to drive liquidity, what institutions actually care about, what builders need, and more importantly, what gaps still exist on BNB chain and on in Web3 as a whole. And so this is exactly why I posted this memo and gave a clear direction that is not totally a pivot, but is an untapped opportunity that we feel THENA is able to cover. And before I go into the detail of that, I've seen a lot of people, and I can understand the logic, comparing Aerodrome on Base to THENA on BNB chain. And this is what everybody was expecting, for us to receive tier one backing, receive the support from Binance and BNB chain, and become what Aerodrome has become to Base. And I want to address this. This comparison, it ignores the most important part, which is, once again, context. When we launched THENA, we launched on a chain that already had billions in TVL, a DEX with more than $1 billion in TVL, and that had one of the biggest user base in the entire DeFi space. Base, as soon as they launched, they branded IRO as the native liquidity layer from day one. Every major partner, TGs, expansions, cross-chain expansions, it went through them. They were so deeply integrated into the chain narrative that, coupled with their amazing execution and vision, it led to the kind of success that everybody here was expecting for THENA. Unfortunately for us, we launched in completely different conditions. We had a DEX with deep market shares, deep integration, and a multi-year head start, essentially. So every listing we had to fight from the beginning. The distribution channels that they had, they were unavailable to us or hard to reach. And the reality is for THENA to compete as the number one spot on BNB chain, it's a tough challenge. I would say one of the toughest challenge that you can have as the DEX building. However, it's once again not an excuse, because if we would have launched in any other, like most other ecosystem, we probably wouldn't even be here today, because those ecosystems, they lack the user base, they lack the usage, and they lack the liquidity, the activity that is needed for a DEX to thrive. So I just wanted to give some context into why we cannot just replicate, copy paste what Aerodrome is doing and expect it to work for us. And based on that, we have two options, because we're at the late stage of our emission schedule. We're kind of like a late stage startup in the sense that we're approaching 3 years of operation. So the way I saw it is either we can remain blind to the market structure on BNB chain and we keep making marginal improvements to the DEX, adding a couple of hooks, a couple of use cases, building the launch pad, building auto compounders, all that, and hope that suddenly it unlocks new demands so that we can kind of like catch up with the market shares. Or we take the lessons that we learned. We understand why current DEX's dynamics plateaued for us in a sense, and we build something that an entire ecosystem actually needs, including THENA as an AMM. And this something, it already has a PMF in TradeFi. It's already dormant demand on chain. And we believe that we have a unique credibility to execute on it through the team that we have, the knowledge that we have, and our positioning in the ecosystem. This is why I introduced in the memo the options vertical, because it is a perfect fit with AMMs. What we learned from institutions is that providing volatile assets in a concentrated liquidity pool, they don't like the lack of predictability of the outcome. With the loss versus rebalance, your impermanent loss versus the yield, it's very hard to predict your inventory over time versus the yields that you're going to get. And this is something that makes it very hard to deal and onboard with institutions. But they want to play on chain. They want to generate yield with their assets, but they want predictability. And options is a tool, is the number one derivative when it comes to express your opinion of the market. You're not just trading the spot price, but you're expressing what you think of the direction and the size of the volatility. And this makes it an amazing tool, not only for speculation, by accessing cheap leverage with call options, for example, but it's also an amazing risk management product and a yield generation product. If you look in TradeFi, covered calls, cash settled puts, collars, they are widely used by a lot of institutions to generate yields and manage their risk and their exposure based on their portfolio constructions. And it's a matter of time before it comes on chain. And we believe now is the time to bring such a solution. So I'm going to start answering some of the questions from the community. You wrote a lot of questions. I picked some of them, but then if anyone has other questions, I will invite you to the stage and we can have a discussion as well. One that I kind of already answered is, should THENA adopt Aerodrome's ignition model and build a suite of products around the DEX? So like ALMs, auto compounding, launch pads, and I went through it. I can guarantee you that there is a difference between having hundreds of millions of TVL and adding an auto compounder, which will instantly receive tens of millions of demands and generate some nice profits for token holders, and having a baseline of 18 million TVL and adding an auto compounding layer. Because if you add those vaults, its maintenance is development time. It's audits. Like, we have entire protocols built on just auto compounding vaults. At least we used to. Now they specialized a little bit into AMMs, etc. But it is a business in itself. And if you look at the economies of scales, for us, it doesn't make sense. If we would have hundreds of millions, integrating other verticals instead of letting other build it would make sense. But at the stage we're at, where we need a profound change in the perception of the value of THENA as a protocol, we cannot rely on that. This is something that is not possible for us. Let me go through other questions. So, there's a lot from here. What's your take on Zealy? Don't you think the campaign dragged on too long and should be replaced with something better, or at least have its funds redirected to more useful purposes? So once again, this would be better answered from our marketing team, but this is something that we actually discussed very recently. And Zealy has proven to show consistent exposure and visibility on Twitter for a very long time. It has also been a tool that satisfies our partners when we ask our community to create quality content for this protocol. So it has been something that we have leveraged in various ways and will keep on iterating, and has shown consistency over time. However, we did revisit the budget recently, and that mostly has to do with the current valuation of THENA and of THE and the state of the market. However, I do believe it unlocks constant value, and that it created some power users that have deep knowledge of THENA and are willing to spread it on a daily, weekly basis. And we do believe there is long-term value in that. Now, there is for the next one, what's the exact synergy with Singularity and Infinio, and how could it drive more volume and higher revenue for the THE holders? So let's go back to the second part of our memos, where I highlighted like various pillars. From the standpoint of the team, we have a limited amount of resources, and we need to maximize the output we can get from it. So building things ourselves, such as right now the launch pads, it would require, for example, an entire go-to-market with it. It basically we would be competed with for.meme and the other launch pads that are there. In order to do that, you need to have a strong go-to-market and flagship products. You need to have people ready to release their meme coins with serious teams that have serious go-to-market plans. So all the things are next to THENA at the moment when it comes to launch pads, ALMs, auto compounding, etc. We intend to keep them outsourced and not build them internally. Singularity and Infinio works the same way in how we collaborate with them. What we do expect from Singularity is a top-notch AI-based platform that will allow our user base to interact with THENA in a way more streamlined way, and in a way that will unlock more complex transactions with less knowledge. It will also be a tool for full automation, for optimizing voting, for potentially managing your liquidity in the future. And when I discussed on the first pillar of capturing the traders at the beginning of its journey, so starting with discovery, this is Singularity with what they're building could be a big part of it. And this is what they're building on their side. And Infinio, they are the bridge between banking, traditional banking, and opening the doors to crypto. So as they work on acquiring the user base, the user base will be exposed to THENA-related product, like earn THE by providing this LST, or by providing in the USDC, USDT pairs, or even if they want, in one of the volatile pools. So for us, it will act as a distribution channel on top of giving special access to our current user base. And so for that, we rely on those protocols either as distribution channels or as feature developers that we can integrate directly into THENA. And this is a strategy that we've been doing for quite some time. Some things needs to be internalized, and it's very important, and we needed to decide what is. And if we want to survive and thrive in the future and completely restructure the way investors perceive THENA's future value, we need to tap into a new vertical and not just add small layers on top that will improve a little bit usability, composability, use cases. We need, in my opinion, a big change. Time is of the essence. Resources are constrained. So we need to build with what we have. And so based on that, we decided to fully allocate our energy into an options platform that will be built from the ground up. And all the peripheral features will be handled through our network of partners, which is quite large. So how big was the impact of the cancelled Venus range? I went through it. What happens? Okay, just want to touch a word on this. What happens if Abacus are not going to open the redemption gate for Lifta to VIDA? They keep the massive ETH NFT. This is never going to happen. They're actually, I think, about to open it, but what I can guarantee you is that it's not going to happen. I know the founder. He's a very legit person. He's ethical, and he would not do this. And if it would happen, but which he never will, we would most probably do a migration of the ETH and try to block theirs, essentially. Why has support from BNB chain been so limited so far? So that goes from, I would say, a wrong assumption. Did we get an equal support to PancakeSwap since the beginning of the year? Definitely not. This was their strategic decision. However, we do have a very good relationship with BNB Chain, and they have supported us in many ways since we launched THENA, whether through grants, through a lot of spaces, a lot of connections, co-sponsoring events, giving us visibility. It's just that we cannot rely on the chain to do our work in a sense. But indeed, we didn't get access to this entire BNB season. And that's something I cannot really answer on my side as the founder of THENA. This is a question for BNB chain. But we do have a good relationship with them, and they did decide to focus their growth period with other protocols. How will THENA actually be okay? Memo mentions expanding user base. How will success show in metrics? So, for example, daily fees, revenue by mid-2026. So first, I will not give any numbers. We are doing financial projections internally, but they're worthless until they happen. Again, anyone that's launched his startup and tried to raise money and went with the typical 3 years projections knows that you end up with a number that is most of the time very far from this. For me, what matters is showing growth. So if we're averaging 120K weekly revenue, I would like to see double. Then if it's a bull market, I would like to see quadruple. So I want big numbers. This is what, at the end of the day, will show the growth. Whether we're talking about user base, I would be fine with increasing our user base by 10%, but increasing our bottom line by 200%. But at the end of the day, as the DEX, protocols expect you to give them visibility. You're not only a platform that they use to bootstrap liquidity, you're also a distribution channel for them in a way. So having a big user base is key to that. And that's why I mention it. And it is a key effort that we want to focus on. Now, in terms of numbers, I don't have any specific numbers. Same for what's your 2026 target for TVL growth. If you're talking on the DEX side, anyways, I won't give any numbers, but I would like us to go past our all-time high, obviously. That would be a good start, and we're very far from it. And then there is also the question of what kind of TVL, because another thing I mentioned is the natural product market fit of an AMM with RWAs, because most RWAs are liquid and exotic in nature, have nothing to do on an order book. AMM cannot compete on high-frequency trading with an order book, but AMMs have huge product market fit in regards to everything related to tokenization. So I do believe we're going to see during the next growth phase, if we expect everything to be tokenized and to have demand for it, AMMs will be a central place. But it will be large TVL and very low turnover, very low capital efficiency, because you need low fees for those assets, and it doesn't generate that much volume from the get-go. Whereas if we talk about getting meme coins on THENA, they're short-lived. It's small TVL most of the time, but during their short life, they generate a lot of fees. So we, as an AMM, needs to be agnostic to that and have the infrastructure to host both. And then it needs to go to market that comes with it. On fees revenue, how do you see the options layer plus advanced LPs boosting this metrics? But I see it considerably increasing it. For me, this is the big problem it solves. The problem is if you're providing ETH USDT right now, most of the time you're depositing ETH because you're bullish on ETH. But the problem is that by doing so, you're actually short ETH in a way. You're going to sell your ETH as it goes up, right? And this is how an AMM works. But this is also a big constraint because you deposit only assets you're bullish on. And having structured product with one arm that is the LP and the other arm that is the option leg that allows you to either get directional exposure. So, for example, buy a call option on ETH and provide ETH USDT so that if it goes to the top of the range, you actually can execute on your call option and keep your exposure as it was when you initially deposited. It doesn't have to be fully delta neutral, but it has to give predictability, more predictability in the outcome, at least a range. From there on, I do expect it to be way easier to onboard institutions because the payoff will be way clearer. In terms of numbers, once again, I don't have any specific numbers in my mind. Are there any plans to partner with Ondo to launch tokenized share? We are in touch with them and other protocols as well. They're tokenizing equity. Same. We might release it very soon. Anyways, on our side, it's just leveraging our AMM. However, in terms of volume, it's also very limited, but good marketing wise. So yes, we do intend to partner with protocols, companies that tokenize equity, to launch and bootstrap liquidity on THENA and scale it based on demands. If it doesn't generate fees, then there is no reason to send more THC incentives to it. As simple as that. Okay, what is the first priority of the roadmap? When can we expect it to be released? As most of you know, I am very bad at giving deadlines. The priority on our side internally is to build the options order book and the structured product on top. This is our sole priority. Before that, we needed to release our new router, which is basically done because relying on others for routing has made it hard for us to also TG with this protocol. It created a dependency that we needed to remove. Outside of that, we're going to be fully focused on the options. And for the other pillars, and for example, the meme coin launchpad, we have a partner that we will integrate directly and do a fee sharing with them at launch, which will be paired with the go-to-market that I mentioned. We need a flagship launch with it. So I do not have any specific ETA. What I can tell you is that for us, Q1 2026 is when we would expect to release our MVP. What is your plan to survive these bear markets? We've been in and out of it for quite a while. We've made some mistake of scaling too fast, for example, Post-Binance listing. So for now, it's about being lean. And as I mentioned previously, it's about having a good overview of the resources that we have, your monthly spending, your monthly revenue, and with the current picture, how long can you survive versus how long do you need to actually get out of that situation where you can be in the green and start actually scaling and hiring back, And right now we are in a lean mode where we minimize marketing spending. We focus resources on engineering, and that's pretty much it at the moment. When could we expect Arena V2? And what is your strategy to make it more attractive for people so that we can have definitely more competitions, not only opened by the THENA team? I think Arena has one potential great product market fit. It's for meme coins. If you look at the numbers of like meme coins that graduate from platforms such as for that meme or Palm.fun, it's ridiculous. It's less than one out of the thousand, and I think most probably way more. I don't remember exactly. What matters when they get out of the bonding curve is to keep the momentum going, and that goes mostly through trading volumes, onboarding traders. This is one of the core components of meme coins, of course, on top of the lore and the community building and the development of price action in itself. Volume brings more volume. And in that sense, Arena could be a great integration with those platforms. Graduate, use a percentage of the supply as a trading competition, have a matching program from THENA so that we can select some graduated meme coins and top it up, bring more rewards and more volume, and kind of like creates the flywheel to help keep the momentum and get to the next steps post graduating. Now, the thing with Arena V2 is we unfortunately had to separate ourselves from one of our software engineer who was in charge of Arena V2. It is like 70% completed, and it's been like that for the past 2 months. It's once again a matter of resources and on what we should focus on. With the current team that we have, we do not have the capacity to work on multiple verticals at the same time, unfortunately. So we would rather put all our eggs where we believe we can generate the most value for token holders. And there was another question while I'm at it, which asked how many full-time developers that do we have. At peak, we had 7, and now we have 5. So let me just go through some of those other questions. Is there maybe another place? I guess there are 20 questions here. Okay, I think we can start taking other questions either from the live chat, or if anyone would like to come on stage and have some questions or discussions, I'm more than happy to answer. No one? All options platform benefit the shareholders. But the same way as any product that we built, the revenue will come back in a way to VTHE holders. The exact amount still remains to be decided. Right now, we are focused on actually developing the product, thinking about the architecture, discussing with a lot of builders regarding their needs. There hasn't been a really composable option platform, and we think composability is key. Make it adopted from other builders. Things like options is you can tackle like pendle size markets because it can literally be a yield marketplace through various structured products, and it can also be In my opinion, a better way to access cheap leverage that would be liquidation less but time bound, because this is how an option works. You wouldn't get liquidated, but at expiry, it's a binary outcome. Either you're getting the payoff structure of your option above strike, or you're getting zero. And out of that, you can actually build a very interesting perpetual like UX product that would give liquidation less time bound leverage. And this is hyper liquid kind of markets. So this is the potential size of an option marketplace. Now, in terms of how the revenue will be redistributed, we can discuss this later on once we're closer to our go-to-market. Can you comment? Yeah, the DAT. So indeed, as one of the thousands ideas that came to our minds over the last months, building a DAT on top of THENA has been one of the idea. We've reached out to some parties, as you are aware. Now, if they come to do it or not is up to them. I do believe there is some natural synergies. And for someone that is good at raising capital and onboarding investors at large size, it could be a potential game changer, but you have to get to that point. I think it's an interesting concept. So if someone would do it properly, it would be one that would be supported as we supported many other protocols on top of THENA over time. Mm. Um, doesn't look like there are any other questions. Well, anyways, I'm gonna chill on here. You let me know if there are any questions. The first time I do this without someone hosting, it's a different job to keep talking when I have nothing to say. So actually, it's a hard job. I see two people typing. I'll be taking those questions if there are questions, and then maybe I can move on to the conclusion. And anyways, I'll be available if anyone have further questions through the general chats. Yeah, so I think I kind of answered this question. So for the in-house wrapper, let's give an answer to this one, because I feel like it's the most interesting one, because through Lifter and the others, we proved that there is big demand. They had, I think, 30% of the supply. So this could potentially be captured in-house and generate another revenue stream. So we are considering it. There have been good examples how it can be implemented successfully. The one that comes to my mind is from Shadow, the X33 model that we're looking at. But once again, it's a matter of priority. And at the moment, we do not have the resources to focus on that. And I do not expect it to change. To give a bit more details, I am trying to raise a bit more funds so that we can actually scale the engineering team to speed up the process. We are on a good path to do that. Actually, I do hope I'm going to be able to do it in December. Close the race by December. But right now, all the engineering resources are going towards this options platform. Yeah, I would. If we were to do it, I would definitely ask for their opinion and guidance because they've proven to build a lot of cool stuff on top of E3, and they're one of the few teams that have proven to actually know what they're doing with E3. So I would definitely do it, but once again, not priority. What about regular communication? So monthly update from myself through my medium, like I did with the memo from now on. And we will follow that with a community call as well, with a dedicated channel where you guys can ask your question. And we will do the same as today, hopefully with Xermes or Apollo with me, so we can make it a bit more fun. And yeah, I would like to apologize because in tough times, it's very like it's easy to communicate in good times, and it's very hard to communicate in bad times. And most of the previous times, I knew we would get out of the situation and I had the plan for it. And this time, it took us a lot of time to actually get an answer to this and to all that was happening in the background and to us not reacting fast enough. So it was not that we didn't want to communicate, it's that I truly didn't really know what to communicate. And once again, in my 5 years in DeFi, this has been like the lowest point in my building in Web3 experience. So I do apologize for the lack of communication. What I can tell you, it is not us just living into the sunset and enjoying what we did for the past 2 years while you guys bag holders, because this is definitely not what is happening. We're more motivated than ever, specifically with the directions I gave today in the memo. I cannot promise anything in life. What I can promise you is that we are going to iterate and we are going to do everything we can to make THENA more successful than it ever was, even during the Binance listing. Now, will we achieve it? Time will tell, but I do believe we have a very strong execution plan, a very strong network, very strong backers. So we have to make something out of it. We just ask you to be patient, and we will on our side make sure that communications can flow better between both sides. And I guess on those last words, I'm going to close this community call. Once again, I do appreciate everyone tuning in. I do appreciate you staying with us during the good and the bad times. And I guess I will see you for the next community call. If anyone has other questions, even for those who are going to be hearing the recording later on, feel free to tag me. Might take a little bit to answer, but I will make sure to answer all the important questions if there are any more left. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your time, and we speak soon. Have a good one.